the middle person on the screen there is Erica, and Erica Kobett, and she is our presenter tonight. I just have a short bio. Erica was raised with metaphysical teachings. Through her life, she has explored many realms of wisdom teachings, but her love for the Neteru, the gods and the goddesses of ancient Egypt, is where her soul finds its true home. She currently works as a massage therapist in Roseville, Minnesota, and I've included her information, her website, in our links there. So if you want to contact her for any reason, you can find her website. So I'm going to hand off to Erica now.
Hi, my name's Erica. And this is very interesting because I'm staring at this little owl thing, and I shouldn't. So anyway, hi, I'm not nervous at all. Tonight, we're going to talk about the journey of the soul through ancient Egypt, when the deceased crosses over. So of course, the statements and views of our speakers, me, do not necessarily reflect the view of the Minneapolis Theosophical Society. I'm just here to share information that I've gathered over the years. It's just sort of this continuous study of reading many books. Just going to share a couple. This one, I just have to show this one to you all. I don't know if you can see. Can they see this? They can't see this yet, can they? When
yeah, hold it up to the owl.
Okay, this I got at half price books for like, I don't know, 10, 15 bucks. And it's just really pretty. If you're interested in it's a new printing, really pretty. It's got all the pictures and stuff in it. So there's that. Just thought I'd show you that real quick. So I'm going to talk about the journey of the soul through the underworld, the deceased soul when it moves through. Some of the things to understand about the soul's journey through the underworld is understanding what the soul is and the parts of the soul, and then what actually is the duat. It's also called Amenti. There's another. When did I put it in my notes? I don't remember. There's another name for it too, but it's the upside down world is, you might hear it referenced that way as well. Then the who could take the journey, and it depends on what time period you're in. The gates that needed to be passed in the duat, and the weighing of the heart. You've probably heard of that. That is part of the journey as well, and eventually the passage into the field of reeds. So I'm not sure we're going to try this animation because I couldn't get back.
Oh,
Might have. Oh, should I try it?
Yeah, try it because I'm not on anymore.
Okay, there's this really quick little 5-minute animation, and if I can see if I can do this right, and it's basically a very condensed version of what I'm going to talk about tonight, but I thought it was just kind of interesting to get into the get to the rhythm a little bit. And now I need to share this tab instead. And is it there?
Ani stands before a large golden scale where the jackal-headed god Anubis is weighing his heart against a pure ostrich feather. Ani was a real person, a scribe from the Egyptian city of Thebes who lived in the 13th century BCE. And depicted here is a scene from his Book of the Dead, a 78-foot papyrus scroll designed to help him attain immortality. Such funerary texts were originally written only for pharaohs, but with time, the Egyptians came to believe regular people could also reach the afterlife if they succeeded in the passage. Ani's epic journey begins with his death. His body is mummified by a team of priests who remove every organ except the heart, the seat of emotion, memory, and intelligence. It's then stuffed with a salt called natron and wrapped in resin-soaked linen. In addition, the wrappings are woven with charms for protection and topped with a heart scarab amulet that will prove important later on. The goal of the 2-month process is to preserve Ani's body as an ideal form with which his spirit can eventually reunite. But first, that spirit must pass through the duat, or underworld. This is a realm of vast caverns, lakes of fire, and magical gates, all guarded by fearsome beasts. Snakes, crocodiles, and half-human monstrosities with names like He Who Dances in Blood. To make things worse, Apep, the serpent god of destruction, lurks in the shadows, waiting to swallow Ani's soul. Fortunately, Ani is prepared with the magic contained within his Book of the Dead. Like other Egyptians who could afford it, Ani customized his scroll to include the particular spells, prayers, and codes he thought his spirit might need. Equipped with this arsenal, our hero traverses the obstacles, repels the monster's attacks, and stealthily avoids Apep to reach the hall of Ma'at, goddess of truth and justice. Here, Ani faces his final challenge. He is judged by 42 assessor gods, who must be convinced that he has lived a righteous life. Ani approaches each one, addressing them by name and declaring a sin he has not committed. Among these negative confessions, or declarations of innocence, he proclaims that he has not made anyone cry, is not an eavesdropper, and has not polluted the water. But did Ani really live such a perfect life? Not quite, but that's where the heart scarab amulet comes in. It's inscribed with the words, "Do not stand as a witness against me," precisely so Ani's heart doesn't betray him by recalling the time he listened to his neighbor's fight or washed his feet in the Nile. Now it's Ani's moment of truth, the weighing of the heart. If his heart is heavier than the feather, weighed down by Ani's wrongdoings, it'll be devoured by the monstrous Amet, part crocodile, part leopard, part hippopotamus, and Ani will cease to exist forever. But Ani is in luck. His heart is judged pure. Ra, the sun god, takes him to Osiris, god of the underworld, who gives him final approval to enter the afterlife. In the endless and lush field of reeds, Ani meets his deceased parents. Here there is no sadness, pain, or anger, but there is work to be done. Like everyone else, Ani must cultivate a plot of land, which he does with the help of a Shabti doll that had been placed in his tomb. Today, the papyrus of Ani resides in the British Museum, where it has been since 1888. Only Ani, if anyone, knows what really happened after his death. But thanks to his Book of the Dead, we can imagine him happily tending his crops for all eternity.
One of the things about the journey of the underworld and all of the recordings, and recordings is in writings and hieroglyphs and hieratic writings and stuff, there are many different versions of the story. So you're not going to find, this is exactly how it's done this time and this time and this time. There's a lot of variations in it. So, and which makes it a little interesting to circumnavigate some of the information. So the Book of the Dead is actually called the Book of Coming Forth by Day, or Coming Forth into the Light. Both the Book of the Dead and the coffin texts were collections of spells and prayers to protect the dead from the Duat's dangerous landscape, as you saw, monsters and such. Book of the Dead was originally the story of Ra through the treacherous hours of the night on his bark, accompanied by the ruling god, or Neter, of the underworld, Osiris. Protected by Set, originally a good guy, he was a protector that got demonized over the millennia. And against the serpent Apep, that is the snake. I think it's also Apophis, it's his other name. And guided by Anubis. And also there are many other gods and goddesses in this bark with him, depending on what story or what pictures you see. Eventually the pharaoh would become the ruler of the underworld beside Osiris. And over a few hundred years, other people in the pharaoh's court and eventually anyone else could make this magical journey. So what is the journey and what is the Duat? This dangerous journey had a guide to help the soul to not get lost in the underworld, our dear Anubis. This journey is almost parallel to the journey that Ra takes every night through the Duat in his golden boat, being challenged in every hour to battle his way to the dawn, where he becomes the rising sun in the east and Anubis as his guide. So the the journey of the hours is when the sun sets and Ra travels on his bark under, they considered the upside down world. I'm not sure if they considered the earth a globe at that point, but the sun disappeared and it traveled through, Ra disappeared, and he came up on the other side. So they adjusted by the hours, time, blocks of time, which is what the Book of Hours is. Book of Gates is different, but we're going to talk about both. Set also accompanies the pharaohs, as I said before. The Duat is the underworld, the world that exists when the sun goes down and travels through the dangers of the night. The Duat is also referred to as the upside down world, and Amenti or Amenta or Amentat. It also, once again, it depends on what you're reading. And as I said, the Duat is divided into sections by 12 guarded gates that represent each hour of the night and are closely associated with the journey of Ra and prominently feature Osiris, god of the Duat, and personification of. So following the soul through the journey, I thought, okay, there are 7 parts of the Egyptian soul, just which part of the soul is actually doing this? So in the 7, we have the Ket, the physical body, the Sa, or the spiritual body, the Ren, or the name identity. The pharaoh will also have a Ren name. Pharaohs have like 5 names too. The Ba, or the personality, the Ka, or the double or vital essence. The Ib is the heart. The Shuyet is the shadow. And the shadow can come out and travel, but only during the day, not at night. Apparently he gets lost in the dark because he's a shadow. That's kind of a little joke anyway. And the second, or the power form. So first off, before the soul goes off, what's happening to the physical body? It goes to the embalming process, which requires a lot of things. I've also heard that the body is encased in natron, the salt, for up to 30 days to completely dry out. And I'm not sure if it's wrapped before that or after. You'd think it would be wrapped before. But they also, as they wrap the body, they put amulets in. They're saying different ceremonies. They do the opening of the mouth. If you might have heard of that, the opening of the mouth. They don't actually really open the mouth. It's a magical spell that they touch the little instrument to the lips, to the eyes, to the ears, so that the soul can hear, he can speak, and he can see in the Duat. So what part of the soul does the journey? It's the Ba. The Ba is the personality, and the Ba is represented by the bird floating over the pharaoh over there. There. And the Shamti, which was mentioned earlier, the little statues that are put in there, the Shamti can be inhabited by the soul of the deceased. Shamti are also put in the tombs to become servants of whomever's tomb it is, whether it's pharaoh or whomever. So they are like the little helpers in the afterlife. So the end of the journey, if the Ba is successful, if this person is successful, then the Ba and the Ka are reunited, and the Ka, eventually they come back to the physical body, but not in the way you think. It's like they're rejoined to continue on in the afterlife. Go on here. So this explains a little bit more. Let's see. The Ka is the spark of life for each individual. And the Ka makes sure that the person will continue to exist after death, but it does need sustenance. The part of the soul is able to absorb the energy from food offerings left by the living, which makes sense when you see that there are food offerings at the temples, even at grave sites. That is the spirit that consumes that sustenance. Sometimes the images of food and drink will be painted on the inside of tombs in the hopes that this will sustain the Ka in case there are no offerings left by the living. The Ka would typically stay in the tomb after death. And there's the Shamtis, encourage it to remain. The Ba was considered to be a more mobile aspect of the soul, able to leave both the tomb and the realm of the dead by day. It would take the form of a large bird with a deceased person's head on it, not carrying it around. My brain just went to a very strange imager. Anyway, the ba was considered to be representative of the person's heart and would hold the personality of said person. When the ba has left the safety of the tomb, it needed to be careful. If it was damaged in any way, it would forget where to return to and would destroy that part of the soul as it wandered aimlessly evermore. The third and last part of the immortal soul would be the akht. Little is known about this part of the soul. Some believe that this is the part of the soul that would pass to the afterlife, with any luck, the field of reeds, their version of the afterlife. So according to Wafa el-Sadiq in Egypt, the world of the pharaohs, this is the part we would most closely identify with our current definition of an immortal soul. Some believe that the akh is only achieved when the ba and ka come back together and unite. Others believe that it is a separate part of the soul entirely and is part that deals with religious matters. Once again, there are many different takes on how all of this works together. So who could take this journey? It started in the Old Kingdom with the pharaohs. And the pharaohs and the queens, the queens were also known as the first wife because a pharaoh would have many wives, mostly for political connections. But the first wife is the one you've always seen as the pharaoh and his queen. Middle Kingdom, in the pyramid text, that's where you see the inside the tomb. So it's mostly hieroglyphs and carved in the stone types of things. And that goes back to like 5th dynasty. So we're going back almost 3,000 years on that. Middle Kingdom, as the coffin text, that's when they started having wooden sarcophagus. So if you ever see in the museum, you'll see a sarcophagus. I should have grabbed a picture of it. You'll see the sarcophagus and it's painted beautifully and there are hieroglyphs and pictures upside down all along the outside and the inside. And the inside is so that the deceased can read it's the user's manual of how to get through the dua. So that he can, and that's why he's opening the mouth, eyes, ears, so he can read, which is just in case Anubis is like, hey, come here, you're going the wrong way. So the New Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, you could get if you had a high position in government, you might wind up having a more elaborate funerary process. New Kingdom with more common folk were able to do this. The scribes would prepare these scrolls. By the way, the papyrus of Ani, which was lightly referred to in that Ani, his papyrus was discovered it's a New Kingdom papyrus and it's 78 feet long. So there's a lot of information. It's quite a journey. And what they would do is they would write out your basic structure of the instructions, and they leave a blank space for your name. So you could buy this one or that one, and then they would, a little bit of coin there, and you could buy your way to the duat. Yeah. So what is this journey? What are the gates and what are the hours? The gates are the spells and incantations were an indispensable means of traversing the 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld. The Book of Gates provided specific spells designed to aid dead souls through each gate's challenge, appeasing guardians or withstanding trials by fire or water. In the papyrus of Ani, we can follow his journey through the underworld. And here it was painted 78-foot scroll from the 19th dynasty. And Ani was considered to be a scribe that was high in the courts. So each gate has 3 deities, and they're always shown sitting in order of the gatekeeper, the guardian, and the herald, each holding a weapon of some kind. The spell associated with each gate is under the names of the deities. So, and I'll show you, we'll get to that in a moment. After the gates were successfully opened and the soul would be guided by Osiris to the scales of Mut, to have their heart to be weighed by Anubis. All of this was so that the soul could exist in the field of reeds, much like the Elysian fields. Now, the hours were based on Ra's journey through the solar night, through the duat of the, and then coming forth by day. So, but they correlate very closely. So the first gate, and there is, there's a picture at the end that'll show all the gates in here. I could pull it up. There's another really good book that you won't be able to see if I hold it up anyway. That one. That's okay. So these are the three guardians, the gatekeeper, guardian, and herald. And the first gate is just getting into being accepted into the journey. So it's like the first gate, sure, come on, you can come in, we'll see how far you get, kind of thing. The spell is recited by Ani or whomever is going on this journey. So as I am the mighty one who created his own light, I have come unto thee, O Osiris, and purified from that which defileth thee. I adore thee. Lead on. Name not the name of Rosjetau, Ra's lands, to me. Homage thee, O Osiris, in thy might and in thy strength in Rosjetau. Rise up and conquer, O Osiris, in Abydos. Thou goest around about heaven, thou sailest in the presence of Ra. Thou lookest upon all the beings who have knowledge. Hail, Ra, thou who goest around about in the sky. I say, O Osiris, in truth, that I am the Sahu of the god, and I beseech thee not to let me be driven away, nor to be cast upon the wall of blazing fire. Let the way be opened in Rosjetau, let the pain of the Osiris be relieved, embrace that which the balance hath weighed. Let a path be made for the Osiris in the great valley, and let the Osiris have light to guide him on his way. And Osiris is the god of the underworld. You may have heard the story of the jealousy between Set and Horus, and him being cut into many pieces and scattered about, and Isis and her sister go and gather all the pieces back together. So he is brought back together. And some of this is loosely inferred in this, bringing Osiris back. So that was the gate. Now this is the first hour of Ra's journey through the hours of the night. It's a little bit different, but it's very similar. So the sun god enters from the western horizon, which is a transition between day and night. Ra in his solar bark is the alternate depiction of the sun god as a scarab in a smaller bark. The god Khepri, that's the scarab you'll see holding the sun quite often, who Ra turns into once the sun rises once more, and is likely depicted in hour one as the sun begins to set for the night. The goddess Ma'at is present, leading Ra's bark, possibly showing how her order is still present, even in the chaos of the underworld. And I included this because we have Set in the front. Here's Apophis, Apep, the snake under the barge. You have the eye of Horus there watching and guiding the way. Hathor, and this is actually this, the girl, the one standing next to her, that's Ma'at. You can barely see the feather over her head. And Thoth, who is recording all of this, and Horus Ra. And I also included the website where I got some of the information from. That's scattered throughout here. So the second gate of Ani's journey, we have Uhat, one who opens up the breast, the guardian Sekhet, and Herald was said. And I don't really know much about each individual one. They're not very good pictures of them. He sitteth to carry out his heart's desire, and he weigheth words as the second of Thoth. The great which protecteth Thoth humbleth the hidden gods who feed upon Ma'at. During the years of their lives, I offer up my offerings to him at the moment he make this his way. I advance and I enter on the path. O grant thou that I may continue to advance and may attain the sight of Ra and those who offer up their offerings. So once again, he's on the path now, and he's asking, like, you know, let me keep going, obviously. Let me continue to advance. And maintain the sight of Ra. Let Ra gaze upon me and see that I am worthy. The second hour of Ra's journey through the hours of the night, this is when Ra officially enters the underworld on his bark, along with 4 other boats beside him, leaving the transition between life and death or between day and night. This region of the underworld is categorized by its representation of the primeval waters of Nun as a body of water called awareness. This hour stresses fertility, represented both by the waters of Nun and the unnamed gods of the lower register, who are all associated with images of agriculture and farming. The third gate. So this is interesting. The gatekeeper's name is interesting. Norman D. Ellis had a different way to put it. I wish I remembered what it was. It was a little more poetic. So the gatekeeper is Onnemhua Ahwentehui, one who eats the putrefaction of his posterior. And the guardian is Zeresher, alert of face. Herald is gateway. I am he who is hidden in the great deep. I am the judge of the Rehui, Horus and Set. I have come and I have done away the offensive thing which was upon Osiris. I tie firmly the place on which he standeth, coming forth wearing the Wereret crown. I have established offerings in Abydos. I have opened up a way through the kingdom, and I relieve the pain which was in Osiris, having been dismembered. I have balanced the place where he standeth, and I have made a path for him. He shineth brilliantly in Ros Jetau. So Ra's third hour is on this one as well. In this region, Ra, the waters of Nun, are now transformed into the waters of Osiris. Ancient Egyptians believed that the Nile was sourced from the underworld. And so Osiris' inclusion at this point of the journey makes sense when considering he is the god of the afterlife, as well as fertility and agriculture. The fourth gate, the fourth gate is, I'm not going to try to pronounce the gatekeeper's name, one whose face repels, multitudinous of voice. The guardian is Ceres Tepu, alert one. The herald, Kestifa, the one who repels the crocodile, which could be very handy. I am the bull, the son of ancestress of Osiris. I grant ye that his father, the Lord of his godlike companions, may bear witness on his behalf. I have weighed the guilty in judgment. I have brought unto his nostrils the life which is everlasting. I am the son of Osiris. I have accomplished the journey. I advanced in Ker Neter, God's domain. The fourth hour of Ra's journey, this is when Ra reaches Imhet, the barren desert land of Sokar, the underworld hawk deity. At this point, the sun god has reached deep enough into the underworld and away from his own light that he cannot see, having to rely on his own voice as a way to guide himself and his crew out of the darkness. Without any water to traverse, the solar bark turns into a double-headed, fire-breathing serpent as Ra's only means to traverse this pitch-black and sandy region. This hour is particularly notable for the visual break it takes from the other hours, in that it has a giant sand path zigzag through all 3 registers, uniting them all, but making it hard for Ra to traverse on account of the various doors that are in the way. The 5th gate, the gatekeeper is Ankh Femfent. He lives on worms.
Yeah.
The guardian, Shabu. The herald, the hippopotamus-faced, one who charges opposite. It's very interesting, all of these names, because in hieroglyphs there are no vowels. There are very few vowels in it. So That's why we have Isis, but I've been told it's actually pronounced Aset, A-S-E-T. So it's interesting. And the names we are using, Isis, Anubis, all of this, they are the Greek versions. They're actually, Anubis is Anpu, and yeah. So just trying to figure out what the names really, really sound like is almost impossible because it's lost.
Because the Greeks had vowels. The Greeks had vowels, so we know them.
Yeah, I think they had some sort of vowel, but they didn't always put it in. They didn't always put it
Of course
in.
they'd have to, yeah.
You know, but I'm talking about the Egyptians.
I know,
and then
right.
Hieratic
So-
too.
But when it moved to Greek, then we can say those words, but we
Right.
don't know the words, the old words, because it wasn't included. Also, you know, these gates, have you noticed they sound very much like the decay of a body?
Mm.
It progressing, the ish and then the uk and then the
Good catch. Yeah, the in and the worms that come and go. Yeah, and we're about to get to the bones here too. So it's a process. It's a process. You know, someone had asked me to do this like a year ago, and it's like, okay. So we have the gatekeeper, the guardian, and the herald, and then the spell that is recited at the gate. I have brought unto thee the jawbone in Roset Jaw. I have brought unto thee thy backbone in Iunu Heliopolis. I have gathered together his manifold members herein, and I'm imagining this is Osiris's different parts are being brought at this point to the gate. I have driven back a pep for thee. That was the snake that was around the bark. I have spit upon the wounds in his body. I have made myself a path among you. I am the aged one among the gods. I have made offerings to Osiris. I have defended him with the words of truth. I have gathered together his bones and have collected all of his members. So the fifth hour of Ra's journey is a little bit different. He's still in the land of Sokar, the sandy, waterless, fiery region. This is the region of opposites, seen in the waters of Nun, uniting with the desert lands of Sokar. Osiris' burial mound is seen on the top register with Khepri crawling out. Khepri was the scarab, representing the eventual rebirth of Ra that begins with recovering the body of Osiris. There is a narrow passageway that is attempting to get through, resulting in all of the friendly beings of this region, including the scarab representation of Khepri, helping to pull the boat. An oval representing the cavern of Sokar has the god himself being contained by a lake of fire surrounding the cavern. So the scarab, the symbology of the scarab and rebirth, this is the dung beetle scarab that he rolls the dung, and so he has that ball that he's rolling, and he's usually on his little front legs and rolling with his back legs, and that's when you see that, they see that as the you'll see the beetle with the it looks like it's the solar disk. They kind of use that as the solar disk, but that is also rebirth because there's eggs inside it, and they will be born out of that. So it is part of this symbology of rebirth. Mm-hmm. So the sixth gate, the gatekeeper is the Caesar of bread, raging of voice, guardian, one who brings his own face, and the herald, sharp of face. I didn't really look into all of these names, but that's another thing that would be kind of fascinating to find out why they have all these interesting names and what it actually means. The spell, I have come daily. I have come. I have made myself a way. I have advanced over that which was created by Anubis. I am the lord of the Wereret crown. I am the possessor of Heka, which is the power, the magic. I am the avenger according to law. I have avenged the injury to his eye. I'm assuming this is Horus. who lost his eye in the battle with Set, which is why we have the Eye of Horus. I have defended Osiris. I have accomplished my journey. I advanced with you with the word which is truth. So it's getting better. We've gathered up. We've kind of we've gotten through the worms. Don't worry, Hope. We're getting out of that. Hope is icked out by the worms. That's okay.
Yeah.
So Ra's journey in the 6th hour. This is when the most significant event in the underworld occurs. The body of the sun god is seen with Khepri's scarab form being protected by the serpent of Mehen as Ra regenerates. The Mehen serpent at this point joins the journey, staying with him through the rest of the hours. Once again, Ra's solar bark travels the waters of Nun as regenerative power flows, helping to revitalize the Ba of Ra as it is reunited with his body in the form of Osiris. This renews the light of the sun in this hour, represented as a sun disk crown appearing on Ra's head. Additionally, representations of the kings of Lower and Upper Egypt are found here, as the recently deceased king must face his predecessors before being reborn himself. The seventh gate is the gatekeeper, one who prevails over knives, guardian, great of triumph, herald, one who repels the demolishers. The spell, I have come unto thee, Osiris, being purified from foul emanations. Thou goest round about heaven, thou seest Ra, thou seest the beings who have knowledge. Hail thou one. Behold, thou art in the Sekhet, the bark, which traverses the heavens. I speak that I will to his Sahu. He is strong and cometh into being even as he spake. Thou meetest him face to face. Prepare thou for me all the ways which are good and which lead to thee.
That sounds like a psalm. Prepare thou the way. It sounds like a psalm in the Bible, like it was picked right in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a clue, isn't it?
There's other things that things are repurposed throughout history. As we study all these different, from the Sumerians to the Egyptians to on and on, So the 7th hour of Ra's journey, regenerating the light of Ra, is a very dangerous moment in the journey, as it attracts the forces of evil present in the underworld. In this hour, Apep swallows all of the waters of Nun in an attempt to stop the bark and kill Osiris through Ra once more, preventing the daily cycle of the sun. The goddess Isis places a magic spell upon the bark in order to allow it to continue traveling through the regions without the need for water. The enemies of Osiris are punished for their intent to cause him harm, and the humanized depictions of the stars following Ra's path to the end of the underworld lead the way. Some of these descriptions, some of the hours are actually descriptions of images that I could not find. You'd think they would have put them together, but they didn't. So they're probably in one of these books, I'm sure. So with the 8th and 9th hour, we have Ra is now fully regenerated, and the powers of evil have been avoided through the help of the gods. Now Ra comes across 5 doors that he must command open with his voice, adding to the hardships on his journey. The unnamed gods on the upper and lower registers are seen creating new clothing, again associated with ideas of rebirth and renewal. The solar bark is pulled along by 8 unnamed gods to help Ra reach the surface once more. The journey of Ani that I had here was only 7 gates. It wasn't 12. The hours was 12. So you will possibly find all 12 gates of that story in another. It was not in the one with Ani that I used. Once again, lots of different versions. So that's where we're jumping to the hours here at the end. So hour 9, Ra's solar bark is pulled by 12 oarsmen in this hour, helping to pull him towards the light of the living world. The three idols present in front of the men are there to help the gods carrying stalks of grain, disperse bread and beer to the dead in the underworld. They said no further explanation is offered in the text as to why this is done, but it is likely tied to the ideas of the deceased living in the underworld and therefore still requires sustenance. And I saw this as a compassion, showing that he is now still taking care of his people. Hour 10, Ra continues his journey, being protected by his 12 oarsmen, who now carry weapons to protect against any enemies, but especially against Apep. He's still around, that snake. On the lower register is an image of those who drown in water being pulled to shore by Horus, the god of the sky, in addition to many other things. So it is a comforting image, as it was believed in ancient Egypt that those who did not receive a proper burial could never reach the underworld or eternal life. And so this hour of the Amduat shows that this isn't the case, however, and not all hope is lost for these lost souls. People that drowned, there was no way to recover their bodies, and they were really considered the lost souls. Once again, this is that compassion, that desire to help. So we're up to the 11th and 12th hour. Hour 11, the eyes of Ra are fully healed as a symbol of his health and rejuvenation. On the lower register, a giant serpent known as the World Encircler is brought in by a row of 12 unnamed deities. A bright red sun disk protected by a serpent has appeared on the prow of the boat at this point, showing that the time of Ra's journey through the underworld is coming to an end. Horus calls upon a monstrous serpent with unquenchable fire to destroy the enemies of his father, Osiris, by burning their corpses and cooking their souls. Yeah, that it's like it's going through this whole thing of saving the soul, and then the enemies don't get a chance, and that's how I guess it is. Finally, the sun god is at the end of the underworld and the end of his journey. Having been reborn once again, he takes on the form of Khepri as the morning sun crests on the horizon. Khepri, there's that scarab, he's rolling that ball up to the horizon, and that is the sun rising. That is that big that beetle pushing the sun up and rolling it across the sky during the day. He is led out of the underworld by many deities and gods, the giant serpent World Encircler joining the parade as well. Once the deceased finished their journey through the underworld, they arrived at the Hall of Ma'at. Here they would undergo the weighing of the heart ceremony, where their purity would be the determining factor in whether they would be allowed to enter the kingdom of Osiris. Just because they made it through the gates and through the hours doesn't mean it's over. It's the first half. So this might be a good spot to take a quick break, because we're going to jump into the Hall of Ma'at and the 42 precepts of Ma'at. So yeah, this is part of the papyrus of Ani, representing the gates that we were just talking about. The top half is the 7 gates that was initially that we talked about, and the bottom ones are interesting. I'm not even sure who all of them are. I recognize some of them, but that's okay. We'll go on. So we have left the gates and are now successfully travailed with the soul has successfully travailed the guarded gates of the Duat. They were led to the Hall of Truth, but their first task was to correctly address each of the 42 assessors of Ma'at by name while reciting the sins they did not commit during their lifetime. Each assessor judged their negative confession or precept of Ma'at, and if these 42 tasks were completed, the heart could be then weighed. And this is also where this whole book scroll that's with them comes in, because it's kind of like the cheat sheet, I think, for them to remember all of the names of these people. We don't have the names down. That's okay. We're just going to go through they're called negative confessions because they are I have not, as opposed I have done this, I have not done. I have not committed sin. Number 2, I have not committed robbery with violence. Number 3, I have not stolen. 4, I have not slain men or women. 5, I have not stolen food. 6, I have not swindled offerings. 7, I have not stolen from God or goddess. 8, I have not told lies. 9, I have not carried away food. 10, I have not cursed. So how many of us would have gotten through the first 10? There's like, I have not swindled offerings. I wonder if that's like pilfering the food off of the offering table when they bring the food to the gods and someone's sneaking them off, or sticking your hand in the offerings thing. Anyway. 11, I have not closed my ears to truth. I have not committed adultery is number 12. I have not made anyone cry, number 13. Number 14, I have not felt sorrow without reason. Interesting. 15, I have not assaulted anyone. 16, I am not deceitful. 17, I have not stolen anyone's land. 18, I have not been an eavesdropper. 19, I have not falsely accused anyone. 20, I have not been angry without reason. 21, I have not seduced anyone's wife. 22, I have not polluted myself. 23, I have not terrorized anyone. 24, I have not disobeyed the law. 25, I have not been exclusively angry. 26, I have not cursed God or goddess. 27, I have not behaved with violence. 28, I have not caused disruption of peace. 29, I have not acted hastily or without thought. 30, I have not overstepped my boundaries of concern. These are like, there's a lot of these that we could use today. Yes. 31, I have not exaggerated my words when speaking. 32, I have not worked evil. 33, I have not used evil thoughts, words, or deeds. 34, I have not polluted the water. 35, I have not spoken angrily or arrogantly. 36, I have not cursed anyone in thought, word, or deeds. 37, I have not placed myself on a pedestal. 38, I have not stolen what belongs to God or goddess. 39, I have not stolen from or disrespected the deceased. 40, I have not taken food from a child. 41, I have not acted with insolence. 42, I have not destroyed property belonging to God or goddess. So some of these, if you think of the 10 Commandments, they're almost plucked right out of this, in my opinion. A lot of people see that too. So Ani has, so somebody was talking about how can anybody be that pure? And they were in their meditation talking to Mat and talking about weighing the heart, which we'll get to in a minute. And she said, well, I use a heavy feather. So I thought that's like, it's nice of her, it's like it's within reason, the whole point. We'll get to that right now. Finally the heart gets to get weighed. Now moved on brought to the scales. Anubis is bringing Ani to the scales. Anubis is doing the weighing. You can see at the top of the scale, the pivot there, the focal point, fulcrum is sitting up there. We have the lovely Amit at the bottom. That's the crocodile head with the leopard body and the hippopotamus back part of the body. Waiting. She's just waiting. She's hungry. And Thoth, the ibis-headed god, recording. So here Anubis guides the soul that has passed all of the challenges of the gates and is led to the hall of Osiris where Mat awaits. She is seen sitting top the fulcrum of the scales, her feather waiting to see if Ani's heart is filled with more good than evil. The goddess Amit, with her hippo leopard body and crocodile head, waits to see if Ani fails so that she can gobble up his heart and he will cease to exist forevermore. Often the judgment is to be, often the judgment is also, can be, often the judgment is to be tossed into the lake of fire, both being permanent obliteration. I believe that the heart gets eaten and then the body, that's where you get possibly that image of hellfire. Perhaps. And thus the Abraham God is ready to record the event. Thoth is recording. That sentence. Yeah. So that sentence was awkward. I'm sorry, I stumbled over it. So it's a close-up there. We get a better look at Amenti and Anubis. And I think this right here, it's not a very clear picture, but right next to that might be a little baboon up there, and that is also Thoth. He is represented, the baboons will chatter loudly in the morning when the sun rises, and they wake up and stir the life force, and that's another aspect of Thoth.
And do we know so much because all of the hieroglyphs are explaining everything?
They're probably telling the story of Ani. There, a lot of them are names. When you get a hold of the Book of the Dead, it will give you like the transcripts of what it is, and you compare better than something like we're doing right now, unless we were going to take a page and say there's this and this is what it says and this is the picture that accompanies with it, which might have been a good idea, but it takes a while.
What is the significance of that alligator, hippopotamus, whatever? What
to eat people, right? It's the eater.
So the leopard was considered. Leopard skins were used by. I'll come to hierarchy. You'll see different. See if it's in this one. Yeah, see, if you look at the back of Anubis, the one standing, you'll see there's down the back of his leg, it looks like a tail. That's part of a leopard skin. So they wore that as a signifier of office. There's something about the leopard that is powerful in showing the might. The hippopotamus was considered horribly dangerous. She lived in the rivers, and they just snap people up. And same with the crocodile. So it's all of your very powerful, vicious, hungry, especially with that crocodile head. But she also seems like she's got a lion's mane too. Kind of like a platypus.
And she's waiting to gobble up his heart, and then the rest is thrown into the lake of fire.
Well, so now what happens? Let's see. So we have them a close up there. So going back to here real quick. So the heart has both good and evil. If it's not 100% pure, the idea is the heart, does the good in the heart outweigh the bad? And that's what makes the heart lighter than the feather. So that's why the good deeds are kind of, you want to keep up the good deeds and not the bad ones, because they'll can literally outweigh the evil, and then the feather. And you're not allowed to put like little coins on the scale, tuck them in under the feather, but I'm not cheating. Really. Oh God, which precept did I just break? So we are lucky. Ani's heart was light as a feather. Look at all these wonderful terms, and they go way back. It's passed all the tests and is allowed by Osiris to enter the field of reeds, where he can joyfully plow the fields for all of eternity. All of eternity. So this is just kind of shows a little bit of his journey, and then he's down here at the third one down. You see him behind the ox, and it's just kind of the rest of the story. I imagine this is like the river that's gone through. I don't know exactly where this picture came from, but to go through all of this just so that you can live in this other world and but be happy. It's a happy place. It is literally the happy place. So he is now in the field of reeds. And this last picture, I kind of threw this in here. This is behind Seti's temple in Abydos. And I know that the people in the room can see where I'm pointing, but right back here, there's a little niche valley back there. That was considered the entrance to Amenti.
The what?
The entrance to the Duarte Amenti. And if you go back there, there's broken pots all over the place. It was the soul was carried in the pot and taken and broken and left there. Well, I don't know if they broke the pot there. That might have just been over the last thousands of years they were broken. But this is really interesting. I think we saw pictures of this before. It's the kind of an underground, well, it is underground. I don't know if it was meant to be underground, but it's the it's not the Assyrian, but it's the one in Africa.
Osiris, not the Osiris.
I think
No.
it's this a siren, and the entrance is through a tunnel back here and comes down here, and there are these arches. There's rooms underneath here that they don't know what was in them. There's several rooms in them, and we're looking behind us from this perspective. The temple of Seti, the first, is behind us up on the hill. And they're still excavating the water. They've been trying to pump the water out, and these, the water there, they think it goes down 30 feet, and it's clean, fresh water. It's coming up from somewhere else. It's not connected to the Nile at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something very interesting about the water that's very healing. So,
Yeah. Didn't one of the people that did the excavation said that they cured his eyesight?
yeah.
He didn't need glasses.
Decided to drink the water for a month. Do nothing but drink that as though his water for a
So the
month.
water is still flowing today.
They drain it and it will fill back up.
Hmm.
But they don't really know. I mean, you're out in the middle of
The desert.
the
Yeah.
desert, but there's
Hmm.
oasis all over out there too. There's so many oases,
Yeah.
oases, oasi. So, thank you so much for being with me and the Minneapolis Theosophical Society this evening. I hope you enjoyed your journey through the ancient underworld of Egypt.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Let's bring back our people and see if we have
yeah,
questions.
I
thoughts.
will.
There you go.
There we are. Okay, hitting all the right buttons. Hello. So if any questions on anything
I
or observations?
so Ra went down, around, and back up, and there's a scarab. It reminds me of Newt, or is it Nut? Newt, the goddess who swallows the sun in the evening and gives birth to it in the morning. Is that a sort of a separate parallel thing or
I
story?
think it doesn't relate to this.
Okay.
One of the things about the Egyptian pantheon is there are the nomes of Egypt, all these different areas. There's like it's as many pieces as Osiris was divided into. There are that many nomes because each part of his body was buried in each region. And I can't
Okay.
remember what it was. And each one of those regions has their own
Mythologies,
All those.
stories.
they have they have
Gods.
their triple gods, their so and that like Heliopolis was also where Sobek was like one of the main gods. So it depends on where you're at. And they also have their mythological stories with their gods. So what's in one region may not, there's probably something similar
Okay.
in another, but they're not all interconnected. And that's why, and when you look at this, you're looking at, when we started talking about this, we're talking like right around 3000 BCE. And then you move into the Middle Kingdom around that 15. And then you get into the New Kingdom, which actually moves into when the Greeks took over, the Ptolemies came in, and
Mhm.
they tried to maintain all of the traditional stuff as best they could.
Right. So you have to watch those boundaries and know what part you can't mix and match too much. It just gets muddled then.
Well, there's like it's kind of like today we have the one all over God, and then there's like different aspects of that God. I'm trying to think of more of a modern example. And I don't.
Brahmin,
Yeah.
Hindu, Brahmin,
Mm,
and then
mhm.
the other individual gods.
Yeah, yeah, and even if I look at like
do.
some of the Japanese mythology too, which is more based in nature, which really connects to a lot of the gods too with Egypt. I mean, you can categorize, you can make a category of the earth god and find a lot of gods that will fall into that from different cultures, from different time, different eras. So yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So, would you relate Egyptians' underworld to Christianity's hell?
I, I hadn't really thought about it, but as I think about it, it seems to me, and I am not well versed in the Judeo-Christian stuff, although I was kind of raised in metaphysical Judeo-Christian, but I can quote certain things from the Bible, the popular easy quotes. How I see this, when I think of it, he is being guided through this underworld, but there is a guide that is trying to assure that he is going to be healed, be rejuvenated, to be brought forth. So maybe it's more of a purgatory. I don't know. So I did read Dante's Inferno in high school for a class. You have the 9 layers of hell and all of that. And that it almost takes compassion of the gods out of it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Where this, it seems like there's that compassion and they see these poor souls that had drowned in the river. Horus is dragging them back out saying, come on, we're going to feed you. We're going to take care of you anyway. Sorry you fell off the boat, We couldn't find your body, but here you are. We're taking care of you. What do you think?
I'm not an expert in Christianity, so I
Yeah.
I don't know of other major religions or whatever that view that like something dark, the underworld, that of existing.
It's one of the interesting things, a gal that came talk to us years ago when we were at Spirit United on Como Avenue, Chantel Lissette. She's an angel. She's a channel for archangels. And I read a thing about Lucifer's, his mansion in the other world. And it is this vast, valley and hills, and people are suffering, but all of his demons are walking with the people. They're almost like the psychologist trying to get him to work through this, and he's the overseer to try and take care of. He's been banished to take care of all these people that are suffering, and most of it is like psychologically trying to get them healed. So, and which is very different than what the typical visualization of hellfire, brimstone.
Is it like you have you can repent, you can.
Okay, yeah.
You don't if
Can
you're
be
Baptist.
weaned.
Yeah, no, you can't if you're Baptist. That's once and
Oh,
done.
no.
You go to hell, you stay there forever. It's eternal damnation with fire and eternal heat.
And you stay aware of that?
And you stay aware of it for eternity because you rejected God.
Oh,
What
wow.
dreams may come is very much like the idea that someone places themselves, they create that hell. And the way out is to go, I don't deserve to be in hell. So it makes sense that there would be someone counseling them, but it's a hard sell because the person feels like they do. And as long as they're creating that reality, it's hard to break it.
Yeah.
But the fire, the lake of fire is specifically quoted in Revelation that the sheep and the goats and then the judgment and the Satan and his followers are thrown into the fire of the lake of fire is specifically named in Revelation, and the eternal fires of burning is described, but the term hell isn't named it was just outside of Jerusalem, there was a pit that stayed on fire because people were throwing everything in it, and it was called hell. So then that became associated with the eternal damnation of this
The eternal fire of
this
hell,
judgment that God, in his vengeful nature, applies to anyone who isn't a Christian believer.
yeah. Interesting.
So there
Yeah.
very much is, to me, what I took from this is, wow, they just lifted it straight out of the Egyptian book, maybe Book of the Dead and wherever else it was. And so Book of the Dead might be missing chapters. Is that possible too?
So one of the things that, and I looked through, I have my stack of books I brought. My computer's sitting on, 3 of them, and then there's 3 more on the side. All these different interpretations of what they have discovered so far. They just discovered another tomb recently, one of the Thutmose tombs, I think, and they have so many scrolls and tomb walls that have not been translated yet. So there's a lot of information that is there, but they can't read it yet. It's got to be translated. And I always think, well, what else is under the sand?
Right.
That's what fascinates me. There's just got to be more.
Yeah. And also the hour of 7 seems like it'd be about equivalent to 3 a.m., which is very much that discombobulating time, that is the shadow time. And wouldn't that, because they said it was the most dangerous time. And so I thought that was fascinating. Also the older versions, like, okay, we found, you're describing this one thing that was found, but if there was is it called pre-dynastic time, the really old, that, what is it, 6,000 years ago or something?
I think they just kind of consider it prehistory, falling under it's history that was not recorded. They can't find evidence of it. So it's pre-history of the time we started, how far back we can get and translate what we found. So who knows? Because they say a lot of this came from even before they started writing things down.
And so it's written down, but it's because of oral history of what they thought.
A lot of it is.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Also, something else I saw in a documentary or somewhere reading that what's that called? That thing where the water can't be drained?
Not the Osiris.
The Osiris.
Yeah.
That probably it's connected to the pyramid, and that the pyramid was an irrigation system as well as an electric generator. So then the people who came in later created a religion around all these pieces and parts, but they didn't know it was actually advanced technology. Now we have the understanding, because there's pieces in the pyramid, not the big one, but the one next to it with copper and all kinds of evidence of electric use, that there was like a hydroelectro plant in a sense. And so using water and the motion of the water, but then it also irrigated the area may have a giant oasis there that then distributed out. So what they said was pathways and this and the other that they thought was religious is really just someone not understanding the advanced technologies that were in place that weren't working anymore. They weren't functioning anymore by the time they moved there. But I think that's a fascinating theory of, and it's definitely not accepted in mainstream anthropology and archaeology, and whatever they call it when it's the combination of archaeology and anthropology. But there are, I was listening to a really, really, really long podcast of a anthropologist that was an archaeologist, and there was something with anthropology too, because it was the human interface of it that was more open-minded and this discussion, and that's where I got the idea from it. But I love that idea, because why wouldn't that happen? Of course that would happen if you don't know how to apply all these columns and things, and then you turn it in. And it was really just, it was an electrical engineer, that's who it was,
Okay.
describing that these columns and stuff.
Yeah,
With
there's
the
a whole
wiring.
book on it called the Giza Power Plant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right, yeah,
yeah.
but I've got that book, but
Yeah,
this is like a more
There's-
modern.
there,
But it relates to what you had on the last meeting of that video in China, where they discovered the similar
Yeah,
water that was down deep, went down like, I don't know, 75 feet or something like that, with a canal with pillars and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
That the civilization
yeah.
living like that.
yeah,
They-
if you look at the Giza Plateau, you'll see a lot of these, squares in the ground with grading over it. They are tunnels. They're the shafts that go down to these tunnels that are webs throughout that entire thing. There was a man, and I can never remember his name. He was like this really old guy that as a kid, he used to play in those tunnels.
I played that as a video for one of the Theosophical Society
Oh,
videos,
good.
yeah, him,
and he
and then.
was, and he used
and
to
the
play,
son.
yeah, his son still
Yeah.
does tours and stuff,
Yeah.
and his son also is a stone worker too. And does a lot of those tours, but so the thing with the last image was Abydos, which is way far away from the Giza Plateau. So you have the pyramids of Giza, and then you can see the next, set of pyramids from the previous one. You get to that one, then you can see the next one, and they dot
they're
all the way
networked.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Abydos is like halfway between Cairo and
and is that
Luxor.
where that water thing is?
Yeah, yeah, so it's very far away. The only pyramid, I think there's a pyramid in Abydos. They haven't
Berta.
discovered one. Berta?
Berta, are you listening? Was it Abydos that the Osiris was kind of underneath and next to?
Yeah,
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
right, yes,
Yeah.
but if you have water there and you need to get it a long ways away, to irrigate a long ways away,
Right.
that's why they said it was such advanced technology that we don't even have, that we don't know. And so there's tunneling that goes a very, very long ways, that's very deep.
But also consider how much lower the river is now because of the Aswan Dam. And
Yeah.
how much the whole
Dramatically.
floodplain has changed. It's nothing like it was back then. And it was also a more moist climate back then.
Yeah.
More rain. So there'd be more, places that could be filled with water.
Did they, the Nile path, course of the river changed? Is that
Yes.
kind of
that's
established?
Part two.
That it was
That's-
close
yeah.
to the pyramids at that time?
Yeah, there's some tunnels, when you look at the small, big pyramid, then there's like a ridge here, and then the cities around here.
Mm.
There's tunnels that go in here that go all the way to the center of not to the center, but to where there's some smaller pyramids that they've discovered used to be there. So there's tunnels to that too.
Okay.
Of course, they're all gated off and stuff, so you can't go. You
Mm.
can't go figure
Right.
it out for yourself. You have to go through.
And it's dangerous. I mean, I imagine it would be dangerous.
And so is going through the tunnels underneath the city of Minneapolis.
Yeah, I wouldn't
You
do that
sneak in
either.
there. I haven't done that. I watched some videos. It's like, okay. Any other questions?
I'm just still
Yeah.
pondering the significance of the idea of at night, when the sun goes down, when you're sleeping, dreaming that you're going through this.
Mm.
And like 3 a.m. is like usually when people are at the deepest sleep in that time, 2 to 4.
Yeah, I think it's all, I can't think of the right word, but when something represents other things.
Symbolic, archetypal.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Archetypal.
archetypal thing. Yeah, of the journey through, we take the same journey through the nighttime in our own way, or it can be redirected as parts of your life, different times in your life where maybe you're traveling through that underworld and trying to figure out where all the pieces of you have been scattered to and bringing it back.
And being tested.
Yeah, yeah, being tested, but it's really nice to have someone standing next to you with a guidebook, have the Anubis there going, okay, you're on page 45 of the scroll here, and this is the spell you want to take now. Okay, go ahead, say it. Good, oh, okay. So, I mean, that, it just really feels to me like they wanted people to be successful in living a good
You're
life.
saying though,
Yeah.
you're dead for eternity.
Well,
I mean, if you don't.
if you
So-
if you mess up,
Right.
yeah, if you mess up, the crocodile lady eats your heart and your body's thrown into the lake of fire, and
Right.
that's it.
That's it. Not a lot
It's
of,
nice when the Buddhists come
compassion
along
there.
and say you can be reborn, do this over again. I don't have any mention of a karmic philosophy in ancient Egypt. If anyone else has come across that, let me know. But I haven't seen that theory. It's just more like being as good as you can to move on to the next life, and which could relate to that whole, the whole theosophical,
Well, the
the
planes
whole
of
thing with the will.
existence,
Yeah,
that's what
where
I was
you're
thinking
just
about
going
with the
up, yeah,
personality.
yeah.
I was gonna mention that before, the planes of existence and the releasing of the personality in this lifetime, and then the soul,
Yeah, because
continues.
looking at the pieces of the soul, the whole piece, all of it doesn't go.
Yeah,
It's just the certain parts of it, and yeah.
and when we know that she spent time in Egypt and she had initiation in Egypt, so Blavatsky was bringing some of this stuff into her teaching, which is fascinating. We just don't know what part, but because she didn't say, but yeah.
Well, there's so much that I remember reading in this little book years ago, and the statement was to know, to dare, to will, to keep silent. So it was like this: to know, the knowledge; to dare, to perhaps use it or be with it. To know, to dare, to will, to use it, to will that word. But you have the ability to manifest in the word, but don't go telling everybody because they're going to think you're nuts, kind of thing.
And they're not ready for it too. They're not ready for it. That was very much the
I
theosophical
yeah.
position, is that there's layers of hidden, like you've said a lot, I think,
Numinous,
there is that word,
Numinous.
numinous, text, numinous stuff that,
levels of meaning.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
where you are personally when you read it.
Right.
You get that layer of information out of it.
And then you read it again 5 years later.
Yeah.
And you've grown in other ways, and you read it, and you go,
You can hear it.
Yeah.
oh, and
Yeah.
then 5 years later, it's like,
yeah,
it gets better and better.
And that's what
You're open to it.
And that's what the hieroglyphs are said to do too, that there's maybe we're getting the interpretation on only two levels, but we don't understand. You've said that before to me,
Well,
right? You don't know the subtleties of
it's
the
also-
meaning.
It's also the vibration, and that is one of the reasons I think maybe that they don't include all of the vowels, because that is the vibration of the breath that creates the magic, because words are power.
Yeah.
So if you give somebody, if your enemy walks through there and reads how to do the power stuff, you don't really want that. So it's kind of like keeping it secret. It's there. The hieroglyphs that are on like the columns around Hathor in the Temple of Hathor, they're very basic. They are very picturesque, so that people that could not read could interpret what they meant through the pictures and where things were. Then when you get into these higher levels, or the hieratic, where it's like the written, this looks like script, like if you took hieroglyphs and turned them into cursive writing, that's like a whole nother thing too. So
Yep.
yeah, so there are, I think, because of the vibration of the breath, there are different levels to meanings of things.
Also color, that,
Yes.
the colors that were used would be symbolic as well.
And we don't have the color necessarily, and some of it is worn off, so we wouldn't even know. And there's also the initiation, that the priests are initiated at a highest level and know how to interpret it at this highest level. And then there might, and the Pharaoh, of course, and maybe his wife, but probably the Pharaoh, because they teach him all the time, generationally, but everybody else is not going to have the deeper knowing, the deeper knowledge. So we're only getting it at the most basic level, if you think about it. And there's still this much, even at the most basic
Yeah.
level.
Well, and they do say that there is, even in Christianity, there is the esoteric Christianity that is not taught to the masses. There's that basic, the Ten Commandments, the Golden Rule kind of thing, be kind, but those higher things that Jesus kind of hinted at, that he was gone for a while. He studied other places. And this is my perspective on it and things I've read. I don't want to say that this is absolutely, I know what Jesus did. But there's just the secret teachings that they kind of hint at, but if you kind of know what they mean, then you can follow that path. It's like dangling the carrot in front of you, and you read this book, you read a book and go, oh, this is really cool. And then you read the next book that's the next level. And then you go read something on this, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's like you read this, then you read Rosicrucian whatever, the Rosicrucian Conception. I can't remember what book it was. It was a Rosicrucian book I read. And then I read this book and then dabbled in this and that. And they all start coming together. And the more they come together, the more you realize there's this higher learning. And then you start learning all these higher things with the Logos and Blavatsky and Bailey and all those people. And it's like, oh my God, this just goes on. And then sometimes I go, yes, it's wonderful. And I'm just going to sit in the corner quietly and contemplate how beautiful it is outside. It's like, I'm just going to be in the here and now. I'm just going to be mindful in the here and now.
Cool.
Because all this stuff is wonderful. It's so fascinating to try and figure out what people meant back then and where were they and why are we not like that now?
And their context was very, very different.
Mm.
And I think there was also that hierarchy of the priesthood and the higher knowledge, because so much of the population couldn't read and weren't expected to.
Mhm.
So my funny thing that I remember is being in Bill class, and he could interpret, he could read, he could remember his life as a priest in Egypt. So he could interpret the hieroglyphic material and talk about it at the different levels. But then you go, is he for real? It's like I always go, well, I don't know. But if that's true, that's a pretty fascinating perspective.
It's, I think, too, something like that, if somebody has that ability, that memory, they're going to be pretty selective about who they share that
That's right.
with too.
Yeah.
So,
And they could access it. They didn't necessarily have to personally experience it.
They what?
They could access the information without having to personally experience it.
there is that.
Well, and that was my question, was he just doing research and describing it? But he it's like a parlor trick. He would pull up a thing and say, this is what they think it means, but this is what it actually means. And he would just go run through it, But no scholar is going to believe him. So there's no point in working with anyone.
Well, it's kind of like Om Seti, Doris Edie. She,
the one who remembered her life in
remembered
Egypt.
everything.
Yep.
She remembered
Yes.
that she had a relationship with Seti the first. So she lived in Abydos, and they loved her. They loved her. She lived there with the people until she died. Her little stone house is still standing there. So there are people that have those memories.
That continuity of consciousness.
Yeah,
Full continuity of consciousness.
And I think too, with something like that, when you get that information, because all of us get that information, but we don't trust it. And we second guess it. And if you start going, maybe that is what it is. And then you sit and you let it go further. It's like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like doing
Channeling.
Is it like channeling?
Yeah.
Or like tarot card reading, where it's like, why, how did this hit just right? There's that certain serendipityness of it, but there's also the being okay with having the higher knowledge. Because I think as a friend says, stop playing small. you know, we know a lot more than we want to admit. You know, because we don't, you know, people judge you if you talk about it too much.
Right, just like I'm saying, I don't
You
know,
said-
believe.
So here we are in our safe group and.
Yeah,
and,
so then we don't laugh, hello dears, yeah.
And Diane, if you're still there, and Renee.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
only said that because I knew
Yeah.
there weren't many people online.
Yeah, but yeah.
Well, this is fascinating, thank you so much.
I've got a
Oh,
question.
Mark,
So I don't, what are there's seven, with the theosophical system, seven souls, seven whatever levels.
yeah,
And
Levels of the plane.
Egyptians have seven,
Mhm.
Ba, the Ka, and all the others.
yeah,
But the Egyptian, does it map to really anything else?
You know,
Pretty
one of the
unique.
things I wanted to do was look at how it might relate to the seven rays.
Mhm.
Or, you know, some of there's a lot of other things to try to compare to.
Yeah,
So, yeah, let me just show these books real quick. I know not everybody's here, but this book is like really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I'm gonna, when I do the recording, I'm gonna put them.
and,
we'll have pictures of these.
this is the one that's over at Half Price Books, really cheap, and I got it because it was really pretty. It's a really nice printing. Unfortunately, it's from China, but
Are there
But look
different
at the,
translations of it
I
that
think
you can get?
I would
That's really
suggest,
pretty.
yeah, this is really nicely done. I would suggest that, okay, one of the things, it's in my notes. I had backup notes somewhere. I'm not sure.
So there's a Tibetan Book of the Dead. Are there other religions or whatever that have a Book of the Dead?
Mm.
Um,
And there's an actual better name for that book, but it's, yeah.
yeah, because if
same
you don't
idea.
think of this one as the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Into the Light, you know, I don't know, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I think is different, isn't it?
It's, yeah,
It's not,
it's a 49-day process.
okay, is it like how they die?
It's,
Different levels that they go through.
yeah.
Past.
My mother had
Yeah.
a copy of it, but I never,
yeah, because I guess
There's a lot of
they use
similarities.
reincarnation as a
Oh, wow.
49 days, and they try to walk them through like the first
These are all
3
Book of the
days,
Dead,
the soul is confused
yeah,
and
wait,
wandering
I
around,
love this, it's just
and then it goes
her
into this stage. yeah.
translation
Then you.
of each of the chapters.
Yeah.
And they're very poetic, they're beautiful. I was gonna
See the
read some of
light.
that, but I
Yeah.
decided
Whether or not you get
that would be a bit
distracted,
much.
you know, or burdened with
Yeah,
things that are, you don't pass.
So one of the things I
I think that's something.
thought I had it in
somebody
my notes, but
So are we gonna keep going?
here, let me just add this one last
Okay.
thing.
Just did my whole self.
So because I thought, okay, because there's all of these different versions and even here's the old Wallace Budge's Book of the Dead. This was my mother's copy.
Aw,
From, I don't know, the 1960s
Well used.
probably. But he talks about all the different variations on it, the Theban version, the Seti version, the priest of the College of Anu. I mean, there's a lot of different versions. But I was curious when it was first actually printed, and it was a German Egyptologist by the name of Carl Richard Lepsius, and he made the original compilation of the text and published it as the Book of the Dead, and that's where the name came from. And that was in, oh man, I put the date somewhere. It's like the 18 somethings, like 1880, 1865. It's kind of it. So yeah.
So that may be a modern term that people have come up with referring to this process.
Oh, for the,
we'll call it the Book of the Dead.
well, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be the book, the chapters of, and
Yeah, a little video, I think I gave the alternate name.
Yeah,
yeah, it's the book of coming forth into the day, the
Yeah.
book of, but the chapters, book of going forth by day, multiple authors, each version has its own variations, guides to maneuver through the afterlife, and they were changed according to who died, and they hired the scribe and said, I want this in my scroll.
Mhm.
So it's not like, they could change it. They could manipulate it, I suppose.
And they had templates for the instruction book. So the Book of the Dead is the instruction book of
They-
how to get through. Right?
The Book of the Dead is a group of chapters. So they probably picked out which chapters they wanted in their scroll.
Ah, sure, not all of them. And they
Yeah.
were sort of trying to game the system. What am I likely to have the most trouble with?
Yeah, because there's like,
Because they knew their own lives, right?
Yep,